So back with another Threshold album, this one being March of Progress, that released in, I believe, 2012. This, yet again, is a monumental kind of album, just like the previous one I've just reviewed, Dead Reckoning, that released in 2007. So many reasons for this being a monumental kind of album for the band Threshold. One, the last album was released in 2007, this released in 2012, so this was 5 years until it released after their previous album, which is quite a hefty time. It is also the return of Damien Wilson on vocals. He was the first vocalist for the band, and then they got another singer for the second album, and then for the third album, the original singer returned, Damien Wilson. And then he basically had left the band for Andrew McDermott, who did a decent run of albums, including the 2007 album Dead Reckoning. And now Damien Wilson has returned for this album, the original singer, this being his third album. Another interesting thing is that the previous singer, which they did get rid of, I don't know the reason for, but they did get rid of him from what I've heard. They got rid of him, and he passed in 2011, so the year prior to this album coming out. Due to health problems, he ended up in a coma for 3 weeks, I believe, and then tragically passed away. So, quite a bit. This, as I said, being 5 years after the last album, so eagerly awaited. The return of Damien Wilson, and the album after the tragic passing of Andrew McDermott. So, kind of a lot riding on this. The 5 years difference, you can kind of feel the kind of time jump. As with Dead Reckoning, which was a very solid album for its production quality and everything, March of Progress feels a lot more kind of clean and tight compared to that previous album. Again, was very tight. They were on a new record label, Nuclear Blast, so clearly kind of got a bit kind of funding there to kind of really work with the album. But with March of Progress, it is a lot more tight and clean. It is basically produced by the guitarist Carl Groom, who does some songwriting. He is also the mixer and producer, and then the other half of the writing of the album is handled by the keyboardist. Carl is basically one of the only founding members who has been there since day one for Threshold. The keyboardist came in quite early on, so I believe Carl formed the band in 1988, and then the keyboardist came in 1993, I believe. So yeah, them two handle songwriting. There is the odd occasion where they'll give some writing credit to somebody else, but they kind of like to keep the songs and direction personally for them, to keep it consistent and tight. And leading on from Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning was the heaviest album, you could argue, in Threshold's catalogue. So going into this one with March of Progress, Damien Wilson has 3 octaves again, pretty much the standard for Threshold with their vocalists. He's a lot more kind of operatic and a lot kind of cleaner, while Andrew had a little bit more of a sharpness to him, you can say. So they kind of do continue that heaviness that you got from Dead Reckoning, but also do kind of return it back to being a lot more kind of melody driven. So there is a lot of melody interwoven into these songs, as well as beautiful kind of vocals and passages, and really nice, pleasant choruses, catchy choruses at times as well, or just real catchy standout moments even in certain areas of the songs. The album is near 70 odd minutes, so decent progressive album yet again. doing the typical Threshold thing of some more kind of short, sweet kind of songs with great musicianship, great melodies, great hooks, very clean production, great vocals, and some good musicianship. And then you've got certain tracks which lean more into that progressive element, where songs start stretching into 8 minutes and, further. So, a really well, established album. Instead of just being the typical prog, it's a lot of time and a lot going on to really deal with, compared to other prog bands which don't actually give much to it. Threshold really hit the sweet spot of the two. So, with this album, you don't really have a poor track on this. Yet again, with Dead Reckoning, the album I reviewed before this, I said there's not really any filler on that album. Every song was basically a hit. There wasn't anything weak. Yet again, with March of Progress, the 11 songs, 11 if you get the bonus track, 10 if you don't, there's not really a bad track. Yet again, I try thinking about it, like, I always try to be a well-established kind of reviewer, like, well-rounded, instead of just, kissing the backsides of every single band I review, which a lot of people do, being why I'm a YouTuber. I like to give criticism where criticism is due. The only thing I can really say is the track That's Why We Came, which is toward the latter part of the album, is perhaps the weakest. By no means is it a bad track, it just doesn't really hold up to the rest of the album, in my personal opinion. Could be a reason for it, I will get into that reason as to why that may be, again, still my opinion, but a reason why I believe it is different, because there is definitely a reason. So, with Ashes, we have a nice little build-up into our song, some great key work, heavy riffs, great vocal work and everything. It's one of the more kind of like shorter kind of songs and everything. But there's loads of solos in this song. There is a lot more solos, I believe, in this album compared to Dead Reckoning. While Dead Reckoning was a very heavy, driven album, this one seems to be, as I said, keep maintaining that kind of heaviness and then injecting the melodies into it, but then bringing a lot more of them leads in as well. I said Ashes, I can't remember how many solos there is, but it like goes guitar, keys, guitar, keys, guitar, guitar. There's quite a bit of solo work throughout this song. Even at the end, it's still solos with the vocals on top. Just great show for a first song. Just with it being heavy, with it being melodic, catchy, amazing hooks and everything. The musicianship is through the roof with all the solos. And then going into Return of the Thought Police. Again, great melodies, great catchy moments. There's definitely parts of this track which just really stick in my head, with the vocal delivery being kind of layered and everything. Just works really, really well. Again, great solos to it. Staring at the Sun starts going even more kind of melodic and everything, but it's a really nice sounding song. Heaviness for that, like the chorus kind of section. The name of it, Staring at the Sun, always, unintentionally, I don't think they did it for this reason because Trump wasn't in power, but Staring at the Sun always makes me think of Donald Trump staring at the eclipse, like a doofus. So every time it's like, here's a song Staring at the Sun, it makes me think of Donald Trump and how stupid he is, which is never a bad thing, let's say. But yeah, real nice track, most kind of melody kind of driven one so far. And then there's a track which, for the life of me, I can't remember the whole name of it. Liberty, Complacency, Dependency. Quite a mouthful. It's a bugger to remember. But It's on the longer side, this one. This is one of the longer tracks. It's still very, very, very good. Got so many sections to it. Again, this is where Threshold kind of leave that really catchy, really accessible stuff to the more very complicated, multiple different sections where the song just keeps shifting and transversing and evolving as it goes, and it's incredible. And then the next track, Colophone, if I'm actually pronouncing that right, leaning back into the melody again, and again, just a really great song, great leads. The Hours, again, leaning back into the longer side. I'm not sure if this is the longest track or the Rubicon, but definitely one of the longer tracks for sure. And again, has multiple different sections, a lot going on. And then this is where we get into That's Why We Came, which I believe is arguably the weakest track. Reason for it could potentially be that this was actually written by Damien Wilson, from what I believe. So the fact that everything is usually always written by Carl or the keyboardist, and then that consistency always remains throughout pretty much all the albums. There's only like one or two tracks here and there in albums, if not at all, of other people, and as I said, That's Why We Came is apparently Damien's. Now, I just feel that it's a bit kind of slow. Like, it's very kind of like mellow, kind of has a slow pace to it. It's a nice kind of sounding song. It just, when they go into that melody side, it's like it has a nice kind of sound to it, very pleasant, very appealing, and then it still has the kind of different layers to it, where it kind of breaks that kind of monotony up, and then kind of increases it with something a bit more faster in a certain section, maybe a bit heavier. I said That's Why We Came, and just kind of seems to kind of trudge along in a very slow manner. And then again, the track That's Why We Came makes me think of something kind of rude, so makes it very difficult to take it seriously. I'm pretty sure you can understand where I'm getting at with that. So I will say though, there are some phenomenal solos in the song That's Why We Came. Being one of the more melodic songs, if not actually it's probably the most melodic song on the album, the solos are therefore leaning into that. It's weird. It would be weird if it was basically a very melodic, mellow song, and then the guitarist came in blistering 10 to the dozen. No, he elaborates on it, but I believe executes it to absolute perfection, which I believe That's Why We Came, while good, didn't really reach where it should have. But as I said, for the solo work, it is insane. Kind of unfortunate, because it's actually one of the most beautiful kind of delivered guitar solos of the entirety of the album by Carl Groom. And as I said, it's just kind of a shame that it's kind of just stuck in this kind of track. But at least he really lifts it, so it gives one of the weakest tracks one of the best parts. So again, even one of their weakest has one of the best parts to it. So again, as for a whole album, you're not getting anything that bad. And then Don't Look Down just brings the excitement right back up. One of the most upbeat, kind of like fun kind of choruses on the album. It's probably the most fun, to be honest. It's just so upbeat, so catchy, so fun. Really offsetting the previous track, That's Why We Came. Great placement to put this as the follow-up, just being that energy and fun and everything. And then we get into Coda. I ridiculously like Coda, mostly because the second it starts, the guitar intro is phenomenal. Like what's the technique called? The pinched harmonics. He goes insane with it. Like, the pinched harmonics is ridiculous in Coda and everything, and it keeps shifting. Like, the aggressiveness of the intro, just immediate aggression, really heavy, and then pinched harmonics. It's just ridiculous. and then it goes into bluesy solo kind of areas, and then it goes into vocal delivery in the verses, which is close to System of a Down type of vocal delivery, but done better because I hate System of a Down. But yeah, that kind of singing style where it's like really quick and very sharp and aggressive, very in the verses here, and then when it gets into like the choruses and everything, it's really dark in that like pinched harmonic kind of drive and everything. But as I said, there's blues that just kind of come out of left field and everything, with beautiful, as I said, lead work again by Carl, just insane. And then the album's actual final track, the Rubicon. This, again, is absolutely insane and a decent change of pace again, because the Rubicon kind of goes into that kind of like 70s, 80s kind of style, kind of like glammy kind of style, metal, very neon kind of. It's like, oh, this is nice and everything. But again, they don't lean into it for the whole entirety of the song. Eventually it starts building into something a bit more modern, a bit more kind of heavy and everything. Goes back into its 70s kind of vibe and everything. Very nice sound, and then back into the modern kind of heaviness. Just absolutely phenomenal. And then the bonus track, Divinity. It's not actually a cover, which Dead Reckoning's bonus track was a cover of a song by Muse. This is their own track, written by the rhythm guitarist or bassist, not entirely sure, but not written by the main two, I believe. But yeah, Divinity I think was absolutely incredible. Such a fun song, great tempo, great speed, really catchy. The keys are phenomenal in this one, so the vocals are brilliant. So the thing with Threshold is literally everything's brilliant. The vocals are always brilliant. They don't mess around with vocals doing ridiculously stupid stuff. They're all brilliant. And then the guitarist isn't just flashing all over the fucking place like a complete maniac. And he's not doing insane blues jazz things like B.B. King or something, you know, where it's just constantly that. Or something just really basic because he's not got that much in the way of talent. He just is so well-rounded and just literally knows what sounds the most appealing and what really fits the song. If a song has energy and everything to it, he will keep a mid-tempo, energetic kind of solo. If it requires something a bit more kind of flashy, you can do the two-handed tapping, alternate picking, shred and that. He can do all of that. If it requires something really beautiful and heartfelt and melodic, he'll do it. And I said the same goes with the keys as well. Like, the keys really know how to accent the songs super well and really bring a whole appeal to the song. Certain bands in metal which actually have a keyboardist, like Evergrey, there's certain songs with like the band Evergrey where you actually hear the keys and it really gives a lot more dynamic and range to their songs. But some of the songs, they clearly still have a keyboardist, but I don't know where the hell he is, and he just goes completely missing. I said with Threshold, the keyboardist is always there, always doing something and adding to it, which just gives so much more dynamics and ranges and just so much more to the songs than if you just took him out. He's not just playing along with the riff, he's not just playing along with what the verse is doing or anything. He has his own little accents throughout. Same with the drums. The drums have all sorts of fills throughout, and then, as I said, Carl's doing his own thing, and then obviously the singer has to do his own thing. So they're all literally standing on their own, doing all sorts of standout moments, but without sacrificing each other or the foundation of what the song needs and what it has to be. Some bands, the guitarist is so upfront that it absolutely drowns everything else out. In metal these days especially, vocalists are the ones who take the forefront, and then the entire band basically walk onto the stage, pick up their instruments, and then stand there for the whole time. Like, the most impressive thing is basically if they piss themselves on stage, because at least then they did something. And as I said, that can happen with some bands where, as I said, certain elements can overshadow other people of the band, but Threshold, all of the elements, if you're into the drums, if you're into the bass, if you're into vocals, if you're into the guitar, if you're into the keys, all of it is on show, but it's not going to take away from everyone else. And it's not just an absolute showpiece of absolute insane talent, where it's like, okay, I've got all the talent and everything, but it's just so much, it's so tiring, it's not really enjoyable. No, it's melodic, it's easily accessible, but the talent is through the ceiling. With the songwriting and song structures and the creativity and the musicianship, everything is on point. Threshold are a great band that, as I said in the last one, is unbelievably criminally unknown. So, as I said with that album, go get this one. This is an album, again, where every track, there's nothing wrong. There's not a problem. I don't have a problem where it's like, oh, the solo's not good enough, the key thing's not good enough, that shouldn't be there, I don't like the vocal work there. As I said, I really tried, and the only thing I could come to was the track That's Why We Came was a bit mellow for me, but then it had great solos anyway, so it kind of just brings me back into it. So, yeah, get the album, buy it, support this band, please. Seriously, just go listen to it for yourself and hear it for yourself. You will not be disappointed.